Sometimes I buy lenses and I don't know why I do it. This was one of those moments. I picked up this new Bright & Star 85mm f1.8 because it was on sale and I figured why not? Today, I'm going to compare this to what I would consider to be the best budget 85mm lens out there, the Viltrox Evo 85mm f2. Which is the better portrait lens? Well, let's figure that out together. Both of these lenses are fairly compact, the Bright & Star being larger and significantly heavier, 500 grams versus 338 grams. Construction on the Bright & Star is all metal and glass, with some plastic for the button and the switch. It has a stiff focus ring and a very stiff but smooth aperture ring, no clicks. Although the Bright & Star does feel like it's made out of better materials, the clicky and grippy aperture ring on the Viltrox makes it nicer to use. Both lenses have USB-C ports for firmware updates, rubber gaskets around the mounts for weather sealing, autofocus manual focus switches, and function buttons. Autofocus on each lens is handled by a stepper autofocus motor. Now there is one thing that I'll mention about the Bright & Star, and maybe this is what convinced me to buy this thing in the first place. According to their marketing material, this lens is equipped with AI intelligent subject tracking recognition technology. I don't know how this is possible or how it is real, but it does sound good. All right, all joking aside, let's take a look at some samples side by side between these two lenses. All of these were taken with my Sony a7C. Ready, set, go. All right, I'm going to keep all of the Bright & Star images on the left and all of the Viltrox images on the right. Here is the first one, just a portrait, both wide open on the lenses. And I'm going to punch in and we'll get a little bit closer just to see if we see much of a difference. Now I'm looking at sharpness, and honestly, there's really no difference here. I'd say that, look at the eyes, they are sharp with both lenses. I'd say that is a tie. If we look at the bokeh, there's a little bit more color fringing or outlining and color fringing on the outlining with the Bright & Star. A little bit smoother with the Viltrox, but the Bright & Star bokeh is slightly larger as we expect with f1.8 versus f2. But we'll see how that fares with some other comparisons. Now, these two right now don't look like they are all too different, but if I pull them up one by one, here is the Bright & Star, here's the Viltrox again, Bright & Star, Viltrox. And as I'm moving back and forth, what you'll notice is the vignetting on the Viltrox. The corners of the image do get significantly darker, even though the Bright & Star does have a lot of vignetting on its own. The Viltrox has more of it, and it's certainly more noticeable. It does work for portraits because it creates kind of a separation and an extra pop of color, but for landscapes and other types of photography, you might not want to have this level of vignetting. Here is another one, and we'll punch into my daughter's eye, and you'll see, again, tack sharp on both. Really, there's no difference that I'm noticing here. My wife, same thing, same focus point. Backgrounds, there's nothing much to compare here, so let's move on to the next one. This one has some nice sunshine in the shot, so backlit portrait, and contrast levels look pretty similar between the two. I'd say if anything, the Bright & Star seems to have a little bit more contrast, which is interesting. Slightly warmer tone on the Viltrox, and we look at bokeh, we should see more of the same, and indeed we do larger bokeh balls, but there is slightly more outlining. But overall, pretty good. Here is a good little close-up of the bokeh, and you'll see that kind of green outlining with the Bright & Star. Now with both lenses down to f2, you'll see that there should be even less of a difference in terms of sharpness. Bright & Star looks really quite good. The eyes are pretty good on the Viltrox here as well, but there is a drastic difference in colors between these two lenses. You'll see the Viltrox is significantly warmer. The Bright & Star appears to be more natural. And not to say that you can't make the Bright & Star look like the Viltrox or make the Viltrox look like the Bright & Star, but straight out of the camera JPEGs, this is a pretty significant difference between two lenses that are both 85 f1.8 or f2. So if you like warmer temperature portraits, I'd say the Viltrox is your best bet. Now this is not a typical difference, and in fact this was the only side-by-side sample where I saw this drastic color difference between these two lenses. So I'm going to say that this is an outlier and likely due to me just snapping the photo too quickly before my camera could adjust for white balance correctly. Stopping down to f2.8 on both here, we'll see that sharpness is about the same. If anything, I'd say the Bright & Star looks just a touch sharper in my eyes. Also a little bit more contrast that we're seeing with the Brighton Star, just by a little bit. And here, as you stop down the Brighton Star, one of the things that I noticed is the bokeh drastically improves even at f2 versus f1.8. So you get less of the outlining and you get smoother bokeh overall, but both perfectly acceptable images. Let's move on to the next one. These are done at f4 and we'll punch in. Yeah, no one's really going to tell a difference. Even the color difference, where you'd see the Viltrox was warmer in one of those samples, you'll see that the Brighton Star is the exact same color temperature, so no difference here. Not much of a background to discuss bokeh. So here's what I was talking about, and that is the vignetting Brighton Star versus the Viltrox. And it's hard to tell here, but if I pull them up individually, here is the Brighton Star and here is the Viltrox, Brighton Star, Viltrox, Brighton Star, Viltrox. So there is quite a difference, and you'll notice a difference in the colors as well. Now, what I wanted to do here is show you guys sharpness across the frame. So in the center of the frame, both of these lenses wide open, I'd say that they are both pretty nice and sharp. As we get out into the corners, the Viltrox looks sharper in every corner to me. So if I move to this corner, I'd say the Viltrox looks, that's pretty close on the Brighton Star, but the Viltrox looks a little bit better. Yeah, a little bit better here, and definitely better in this corner. Now the interesting thing is, as you stop the Brighton Star down to f2, so f2 versus f2, now you'll see performance is nearly identical. Still slightly softer on the Brighton Star, but if you look at the other corners, they're very, very close. I mean, the Viltrox is remarkably sharp at f2 wide open, but the Brighton Star is not that far behind. This shot here is at f2 and punching in. Yeah, there's not much of a difference here. Both really quite sharp, slightly more yellow tint, but very, very close. Bokeh looks great on either one. You'd be happy with those. Here's a shot where the Brighton Star definitely looked better in my eyes. It seems like there's slightly more punch to this image on the left versus the one on the right. And maybe that's just due to the bokeh that's slightly larger. I don't know what it is, but let's zoom into that and you'll see the size of the bokeh, smooth on both, but a little bit larger with the Brighton Star. Now in terms of sharpness in the center of the frame, I mean, tack sharp on both. You really can't complain with either one of these. This is really superb performance. Why would you ever want to spend $1,500 or $2,000 on an 85mm when you can get this type of performance from a $250 lens? Now also in terms of lines, you'll notice that they are pretty even across the frame. There's a slight tiny bit of pincushion with the Viltrox, whereas the Brighton Star might have a tiny bit of it, but less so. But overall, the images look pretty flat and well corrected in my eyes. Let's see, the last one that I'll look at is this shot, both wide open, Brighton Star at f1.8, and slightly warmer on the Viltrox here, slightly more natural colors on the Brighton Star, but in terms of sharpness overall, really there's not much of a difference here at all. Autofocus performance was identical between these two. I'd say that the Brighton Star might be even a touch snappier than the Viltrox, but both so good that I never complained about it. No missed shots, no issues focusing on the incorrect thing. These are two great budget lens options in my eyes. So those are the two lenses. I don't think that you can go wrong with either one, and that's really the point of this video. It was a few short years ago that you would spend upwards of $600 for an 85mm that performed worse than either one of these two options. Now you can pick up either one for around $250 US. Will you get better results with a $1,500 G Master? Probably, but will the average or even advanced photographer even notice it? Probably not. We are really at the point now where you can pick up a full frame camera body, you could pick up one of these remarkable lenses for really next to nothing, and you can be in it for under $1,000 US, and you could take photos that are every bit as professional as professionals. Now let's get down to business. I think that these lenses are remarkably similar, but if I were to choose just one, which one would it be? It would have to be the Viltrox, and there are 4 reasons for this. First, it's smaller and it's lighter. Second, it's slightly sharper in the corners. Not that it matters for portraits, but for all of the other photography stuff, it's better to be sharper. Third, the aperture ring is so well done and so nice and clicky on this one. The Bright & Star aperture ring is a bit on the stiff side, and I don't like that it has no clicks. And also what I noticed is that the markings were slightly off, so you would turn it to, let's say, f2.8, and on the camera you were still at f2. Maybe not that bad, but you did have to adjust it quite a bit to make sure it was correctly set on your camera. Fourth, the bokeh on the Viltrox is slightly cleaner, and really that's about it. What I will say is that the build on the Bright & Star is better, and the slightly brighter maximum aperture is a nice touch, and you can usually find it online for a little bit less. I will link both of these lenses down below in the description and in the comments so that when you guys are watching this video, you can fairly compare prices. I've seen the Viltrox again down to about $210 US, but I've seen the Bright & Star for even less than that, so under $200, which is an insane deal for what this lens can do. So definitely check out the links down below for the lowest prices. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.